On this holy day, the liturgy takes us inside the upper room. Wrote St. John Paul II in 1979 in his first Holy Thursday letter, a tradition he continued until his passing in 2005. John Paul II wrote an abundance of documents about the priesthood, an apostolic exhortation, Pastoris Dabo Vobis, a book, Gift and Mystery, retreats, including one in Ars, ordination homilies, and more. However, his favorite moment to meet priests was on Holy Thursday through a letter to brother priests. He had the desire to encounter each priest personally on this day. The upper room is at the heart of these annual letters, with a theme of coming to a deeper understanding of the mystery of the priesthood, which was instituted in the upper room on that first Holy Thursday almost 2 millennia ago. John Paul II's theology and spirituality of the priesthood remain essentially the same throughout his pontificate. For him, the main focus of the priesthood is the Eucharist. The priest celebrates the sacraments as a man of prayer, who gives witness to the kingdom of God by his consecration and personal holiness. In celebrating the Eucharist, the priest offers the office of praise, which, in his words, is the unceasing discovery of what is true, good, and beautiful, which the world receives as a gift from the Creator. For this reason, he once defined the priesthood as the mystery of humanity. The priest is therefore never isolated from the Church and the people. His service, especially in imitation of the Good Shepherd, and in the priest, Christ lives his passion for souls anew. He insists further on the place of priestly service in the hierarchy. The priest, he writes, appears in the structure of the Church as a sign of the absolute priority and gratuitousness of the grace given to the Church by the risen Christ. Let us then turn our eyes again to the upper room and listen to a short selection from these letters. First, let us allow St. John Paul II to introduce the setting again.
At dusk, I see you entering the upper room for the beginning of the Easter Triduum. It is precisely to that large room upstairs that Jesus invites us to return each Holy Thursday, and it is there that I most cherish meeting you, my dear brothers in the priesthood. At the Last Supper, we were born as priests. For this reason, it is both beautiful and necessary to gather once again in the upper room and to remember together with heartfelt gratitude of the lofty mission uniting us. Let us pause in the upper room and contemplate the Redeemer who instituted the Eucharist and the priesthood at the Last Supper. On that holy night, he called by name each and every priest in every time. He looked at each one of them with the same look of loving encouragement with which he looked at Simon and Andrew, at James and John, at Nathanael beneath the fig tree, and at Matthew sitting at the tax office. Jesus has called us, and along a variety of paths, he continues to call many others to be his ministers. We must never cease meditating anew on the mystery of that night. We should often return in spirit to this upper room, where we priests especially can feel, in a sense, at home. With regard to the upper room, it could be said of us what the psalmist says of the peoples with regard to Jerusalem. In the register of peoples, the Lord will write, "These were born here." From this place of the upper room, where Christ spoke the words instituting the Eucharist, I invite you, dear priests, to rediscover the gift and the mystery which we have received. To go to the heart of it, we must reflect upon the priesthood of Christ. Certainly, the entire people of God participates in this priesthood by baptism. But the Second Vatican Council reminds us that, in addition to the participation proper to all the baptized, there exists another specific ministerial participation, which, although intimately linked to the first, nonetheless differs from it in essence. Our sacramental priesthood constitutes a special service in relation to the community of believers. It does not, however, take its origin from that community, as though it were the community that called or delegated. The sacramental priesthood is truly a gift for his community and comes from Christ himself, from the fullness of his priesthood. This fullness finds its expression in the fact that Christ, while making everyone capable of offering spiritual sacrifice, calls some and enables them to be ministers of his own sacramental sacrifice, the Eucharist, in which are taken up all the spiritual sacrifices of the people of God. Every time we celebrate the Eucharist, the remembrance of Christ in his Paschal mystery leads to the desire for a full and definitive encounter with him. We live in expectation of his coming. In priestly spirituality, this expectation must be lived out through pastoral charity, which impels us to live in the midst of God's people so as to direct their path and to nourish their hope. This task requires from the priest an interior attitude similar to that of the Apostle Paul. Forgetting what lies behind and straining forward to what lies ahead, I press on towards the goal. Also, at the Last Supper, by saying, "Do this in memory of me," Jesus Christ put a Eucharistic seal on the Apostles' mission, and, by uniting them to himself in sacramental communion, he charged them to perpetuate that most holy act in his memory. Let us therefore remain faithful to what the upper room hands on to us, to the great gift of Holy Thursday. May we always celebrate the Holy Eucharist with fervor. May we dwell long and often in adoration before Christ in the Eucharist. May we sit at the school of the Eucharist. Through the centuries, countless priests have found in the Eucharist the consolation promised by Jesus on the evening of the Last Supper, the secret to overcoming their solitude, the strength to bear their sufferings, the nourishment to make a new beginning after every discouragement, and the inner energy to bolster their decision to remain faithful. The witness which we give to the people of God in celebrating the Eucharist depends in large part upon our own personal relationship with the Eucharist.